Hello, and welcome to Zeroization, the first stage of the Mind Upgrade program. In this lecture, we will cover levels of abstractions, and this is a mind-blowing topic, absolutely phenomenal. We will look at the mind architecture and explore thinking like you never did before. By the end of this lecture, we are going to strip your mind of words, and I hope that you'll be brave enough to dive deep into this, as well as patient enough. Fundamental stuff is always a bit boring. Let's start with a quick revision of the material covered in the previous lectures to have a whole picture of where we are standing with zeroization by now. So, most of the people have predominantly verbal thinking. It's based on self-talk. Most of the words we are programmed with must be believed in, as there's no direct perception of what they stand for. As a result, we recognize beliefs as facts. Such thinking is outdated and does not correspond to the reality. That's why our aim is to stop believing, stop protecting beliefs, stop fighting for beliefs, whatever they are. Instead, we have to find a way to recognize belief in order to eliminate them. By now, it's easier said than done. The secret behind any belief is hidden behind the language. So, words are noises that we make with our mouth. You've learned most of the words at the early age by overlapping visual and other sensory inputs with audio signals in your brain. This way, words cut into your mind or infected your mind. However, this is only part of the story, as the majority of words that you have learned are completely detached from any central perception of the reality. You've memorized them by trivial repetition of words explained by other words, and so it goes. Words explained by words that are explained by words. It's just, know what I mean. So to keep this simple, there was the stand for objects and events from the physical reality, named for what we see and experience with other senses, and words they don't. Again, there are words that do not stand for anything that you could see or touch or feel otherwise. The question is, what are these words stand for then? The answer is rather shocking. Those words stand for nothing at all. However, we tend to think about such words as generalizations or abstractions. So, the problem is, when we confuse them completely different types of words, we confuse so-called levels of abstractions, and therefore mistaking those fictions for reality. Alternatively speaking, we are programmed to see what is not there. Who are those people that see what's not there? That's right, most of us. I hope no question asked when I say that happiness or independence is something abstract. But how about time, economy, nation, money, energy, systems, success and crisis? Those words are not seen like abstract things, but like as something real. Do you have what it takes to start adopting the reality? My friends, if you are thinking verbally, which most of the people do, your thinking is stuck in the 18th century. It's sad, and I think verbally, to admit to myself that my thinking is stuck in 18th century, I don't want it. I want to be a 22nd century thinker, not 18th century thinker. So, levels of abstractions. Let's look into this. Let's be brave. Just look at this photo. That is so-called physical level. We see, smell, hear, beautiful. However, we've lost the ability to see world like that from the moment we've learned to speak. Sky, clouds, trees, buildings, people, city, noise, air, river, pollution, weather, clouds, movement, numbers, emotions, climate, money, power, you name it. That's what you see, that's what we see. There's a catch. None of this is out there, but only in our minds. We see the world through the prism of our minds and do not particularly realize that words dictate what we see. There's no sky out there. Sky is a word, abstraction in our mind. What we actually see cannot be put on words. This complex, unknown, beautiful world has been degraded in our minds to basic abstractions like sky, life, water. Just give it a thought. We've lost the ability to see with our eyes, or brain to be precise, and to observe the world silently. Instead, we see with our verbal minds. If you see clouds in the sky, and most likely that you do, you see with your verbal mind. Let's give it a closer look. Let's look into this. All words are abstractions, all without exceptions. All. However, not all abstractions are the same. This is important as our thinking is operation with abstractions. By analyzing them, we are able to see the mind architecture. To identify abstractions of the first level, we are going to draw a line here. A fat red line. All the words for objects and events that you can experience with your senses belong to the level of abstractions below the line, or the first level of abstraction. Simply saying, these are words for what you see, touch, smell, and feel, and hear. These are words or names for real things in the physical world, as well as verbal description of your sensory input or adjectives. Additionally, there are abstractions for what exists entirely inside our skin. These are words for what we feel. There are no loud noises or green trees or cold weather out there. That's entirely inside our skin. Pain is a good example of that. It's easy to understand that there is no pain outside our skin. Also, it's easy to understand that pain is an abstraction for electrochemical impulses made by our nervous system. It's pretty clear that very complex response of the organism and our nervous system has been reduced to one word, pain. Pain in the... Think about this. Further unfold this information. All your feelings, emotions are words for what is real, but exist only inside your skin. There's no pain out there. There's no color out there. For example, the colorblind person outside world looks grey. And if everybody would be colorblind, people would believe that the world is grey. Which we all know is not the case, isn't it? However, to keep things simple, we will include abstractions for what we feel into the first level. So we're going to drop this line. Let's not to forget that there are no emotions, no pain. These are words for very complex chemistry of your body. However, there's nervous system that make you feel what we call pain. Nerves, brain, okay, but system is a word that stands for what? System is different kind of abstraction. It's a higher level abstraction. It's pretty clear to understand. Well, and somehow we combine them together. We think and say nervous system, where in reality we should not put those words on the same line, as they belong to different levels of abstractions. Brain is real. I could see it, I could touch it, And system is something imaginary. Now we look at Bourdieu's system, we have a systematic view of the world. And it turned out to be abstract or fictional? No wonder it's counterproductive. Oh, I bet you have a strong sense of disagreement. Dear friends, I took Ward's system just as one of the numerous examples of abstractions of the high level. There's hundreds of them, thousands of them. Wait until you see. I'll explain this further. So, another example of a high-level abstraction is mind. It cannot be seen or touched, but have to be believed in. For thousands of years we had to believe in soul, but now we believe in mind, intellect, and intelligence, where in reality, mind is a word for something vague, unclear, and we would inevitably fail to define it clearly. So, mind is a broadly intellectual and psychological phenomena of an organism and comprising motivational, affective, behavioral, perceptual, and cognitive systems. There is the organized totality of an organism's mental and psychic processes. So I'm confused. What is mind? Definition of mind includes intellect, reasoning, intellectual function, higher mental process, thinking, cognition, perception, mental representation, symbolic process, symbolic thinking, and idea. I have to keep it short, but trust me, I could go on forever. What pale of undefined terms? Vague, unclear, and hypothetical words, or as I like to say, blah blah blobs. Hypothetical entities mixed up with hypothetical elements that combine with intellectual phenomena. What? And other terms that occurred without direct reference to perception or sensory input. Or simply saying, all of these terms are made up without any reference to the real world and have to be believed in rather than observed. Nevertheless, there are few concrete terms that we would like to work with. These are memory, symbolical logic, language, and stuff like that. So let's look into this. I accidentally came across terms concrete and abstract thinking, and to my surprise I discovered that general ideas or concepts are considered the right way of thinking. Compared to the wrong way of thinking, it's to focus on immediate experience and specific objects and events, which could be compared with brain damage. What can I say? I had no intention to talk about concrete thinking versus abstract thinking at all. But then I have realized that isn't it exactly what we are trying to investigate here? Don't you want to be concrete thinker? I want to be concrete thinker. I had enough of abstract fictional, illusional and vague thinking. And to my surprise, I find out that concrete thinking only is wrong and associated with development delays such as autism spectrum disorder, head injuries and brain damage, as it could also interfere with ability to understand abstract thoughts. What? In other words, if you are unable to understand abstract thoughts or see what is not there, you are considered as mentally ill. Okay, that's interesting. There is an example I found at Modern Therapy Online website that such person may think of term the concrete thinking literally means thinking about concrete. Yeah, well done. Funny enough, it's exactly what I want to achieve with this lecture. I want us to start asking what the hell concrete has to do with thinking and what is thinking in first place. That's it. A fat dog, case closed. Throw this out of your head. Let's stop looking for hidden meanings. There's none. Let's stop seeing what is not there. Let's stop playing this metaphorical game. We cannot win. Moreover, we are much interested in a way bigger issue here. A massive problem. When people confuse abstract ideas with the concrete ones. We believe. And to believe is to take abstract or fictional for concrete. And this pandemic is way bigger than COVID-19. Bigger than COVID. Let's play concrete versus abstract game. Let's go. Economy, concrete or abstract? Okay, concrete. Relationship, ooh, that's concrete. Emotions, definitely real. Beauty, alright, something abstract. Health, real. Money, concrete. Happiness, okay, abstract. Future, okay, something abstract. Problems, ooh, obviously our problems are real. The catch is, none of this is concrete. Even concrete thinking is abstract as well. That's the catch. Isn't it the reason why so many people, millions of people, struggling to find themselves in life? They don't understand themselves and they're stuck in the abstract world and cannot get out as it's concrete for them. So you may well be one of them. Our mission is to break out of this fictional thinking and bring it down to earth, which is not always pleasant. Moreover, it may be a shock for the abstract thinker to see the real world. It's not for everyone. Most of the people do not understand themselves or have an illusion of self-understanding. The reason for this is that, as we mentioned before, abstractions of the high level must be believed in. The whole concept of believing excludes understanding as such. For example, we often hear, believe in yourself, believe in yourself. You have to believe. Now, what is self? Is it something concrete or abstract? Isn't it has to be believed in as well? And who are you talking to in your self-talk? So there's you talking to self. In my view, more realistic picture looks like this. Talking to self doesn't look realistic, doesn't it? There's you talking to some other you. Here you go. Now you're talking with yourself. Inner speech. Simple, isn't it? But wait a minute. Isn't it yet another you that listens to those two talking? Some sort of self-talk listener. Interesting. What is this self-listener like? Clearly it's different from the other two. It feels like a mind within a mind, or abstraction within abstraction, or like a dream within a dream. Alternatively speaking, self-listener belongs to a different level of abstraction. It's more real. It's an abstraction of your physical level, a self-image, so to speak. It's a reflection in the mirror. Reflection itself is illusion, however, it corresponds to reality, right? Where abstractions of the high level, more like shadows of the shadows. I hope it does make sense to you guys. Just think about this. Give it a thought. And then you may think, hold on a minute, it doesn't look right. Two of me talking, another one of me listening. No. Isn't just like person listens to monologue. The problem is, you as a physical you cannot possibly listen to your mind. As if here, yourself talking, it's physically impossible. Body can hear sounds from outside world and listen to others. But inner speech is inner speech, auditory hallucination, so to speak. A dialogue within the mind itself. There's a phenomenal research to support this. For example, a book, The Voices Within, The History and Science of How We Talk to Ourselves by Charles Fernyhough. Interesting read. Moreover, there's an article in Psychology Today called Not Everyone Conduct Inner Speech by Russell T. Hurlbert. the pioneer of the investigation of inner experience, indicated that some subjects or people never experience inner speech. What? It's phenomenal. I'm jealous. This is exactly what I want to achieve with zeroization, to cut inner speech off. Okay, so such typical visual representations of the mind is wrong. We have to get back to the one we've started to build before, aren't we? Yes, we are. So we had you on the first level of abstraction listen to self-talk from the high level of abstractions. This is a big question. Do you actually understand this inner speech? Do you actually understand yourself? And do you want to in the first place? As American psychologist Wendell Johnson said, we may never hope to understand fully what we say so long as we think we already do. The answer is no, it's impossible. Understanding could only be achieved on the first level of abstractions. When we self-talk about real things and visualize real things, the rest is fictional. For example, when you say to yourself that you want to have a burger, it's a productive self-talk or conversation. I want burger. But when think about economy, politics, religion, psychology, relationship, or multiverse, we hit the wall of misunderstanding, disagreements, and arguments within the self. Fictional selves are talking in abstract terms and giving us headache. Same applies to communication with others. When minds collide on the level of high abstraction, we hit the wall. There's no understanding. It's impossible. Clear communication as well as clear thinking, it's possible on the first level of abstractions only. That's it. End of story. It's guaranteed 100% truth. Moreover, this is when the most of the relationship problems occur, arguments, fights, and so on. Clear communication as well as clear thinking is impossible on the high level of abstraction. Now, when we see this visual representation of the mind, it seems sort of obvious and clear, isn't it? Like, yeah, okay. When you're used to it, it's like, okay, I get it. However, let's not forget that most of the people have no idea about levels of abstractions. They never heard of it. As a result, they confuse them in various ways, just like abstract thinker confused with concrete thinking. And trust me, it's serious, it's not a joke. So main confusion is that by not being aware of levels of such, thinking is shifted on the high level of abstraction. It's like reality mixed up with illusion become an illusion itself. Okay, so we have this person stuck in the fictional world that confused with reality. This person is desperately trying to make sense out of it, to understand it, to succeed in that world, and keep thinking and thinking and asking questions, and there are no answers, and trying to achieve what doesn't exist, and going further and further and further and further away from reality into the realm of the high level abstractions. Again, as Wendell Johnson said, in this world of words inside our head, we hold ourselves captive. The get away from reality has been industrialized. Their film industry, their gaming industry, sports, books, show business, culture, religion, even science had deviated from reality. Now, imagine this person trying to give a sense of what's going on inside her head. Or as we say, trying to understand herself. Again, trying to understand who. Remember, self-image, her, sort of the real her, got immersed into this abstract world of self-talk, never-ending blah blah blah. On top of this, she's not aware of that. She operates there, that's her mind, that's her reality, that's her life, that's her. the harder she tries to understand it, the more anxious she becomes. And we all try to understand ourselves, aren't we? It's a game she cannot win. All her worries are there, the problems are there, it's all abstract. Apart from real problems like health and grief for the loss of the ones we love, for example, the rest is pure fiction. In other words, her mind works against her. Eventually she becomes confused, very confused. Some call this paralysis by analysis or procrastination. Some say depression, but I don't like this word depression. Anyway, I have to bring your attention to the fact that we have visualized her mind like that, which is a massive step forward. However, she doesn't see it this way. She doesn't understand it's all in her mind, it's real for her. Moreover, she thinks that words are out there. Remember when we started with sky and clouds, she thinks the words and she cannot see a real world through the thick fog of abstractions. And the question is, can you? Aren't you immersed into abstract world as well? Aren't your thinking is based on self-talk? Aren't lawyers, historians, most of the writers, psychologists, philosophers, politicians, economists, scientists, teachers, you name it, stuck in the abstract world as well? Children, think about that. Moreover, there are whole nations stuck in the abstract world, especially the least developed ones. The least developed nation, the more abstract thinking it has. In case you recognize yourself in this image, one thing I could say for sure, there is the way out. Psychology, mindfulness, philosophy, spirituality, religion, self-development books, it will definitely help. It will. More of the same always helps. Now, that's better, isn't it? Just keep loading yourself up with more abstraction, undefined terms, opinions, beliefs, and keep deviating further and further away from reality. It will definitely help you. Or get real. Start operating on the first level of abstractions. Get down to earth. Whatever you think of, just ask yourself, is this world for what I can see and experience with my senses? Yes or no, that's it. Simple. Then, if not, it's a world for what doesn't exist, therefore abstraction of the high level. Just stop using it. And don't force it, it must come naturally. At first you may discover one or two high-level abstraction words like something obvious like love or beauty or life. Then you'll go further and further and start getting rid of what like never, everything, nothing, forever. Then you will move to all sorts of judgments like good and bad, perfect, and realize that none of it exists. And so on until you progress to the really hard thinking like personality, identity, self. And eventually you'll ask yourself, what is what? Or does exist? And when you realize that exist doesn't exist, that time doesn't exist, that mind doesn't exist, then your mind will shift a bit. What will shift? Mind? Welcome to the club. When you realize this, welcome to the club. Understanding of this solves most of your problems. As soon as you realize that they're abstract or fake, they fade away. Real problems on real level. Love of the ones we love, health problem, addictions, violence, financial struggle. The rest is fictional. Some say, I get it, but how about happiness? Happiness! It is abstraction of the high level as well. According to you, it doesn't exist. Are you taking happiness away from me? I'm not taking happiness away from you. I'm taking abstract happiness away and direct you to real happiness. There's like only sad, miserable people looking for happiness. Happy people don't look for it, they're just happy. So when you realize that happiness is an abstraction, and abstraction exists only in abstract world, never in reality. Look at this photo. Look at this smiley face. This toddler doesn't even know such word as happiness. and yet he's full of energy and joy. Doesn't make sense. He doesn't know or she the concept of happiness. Doesn't mean that he cannot experience those emotions. Let me give you an extreme example of the confusion of the levels of abstraction and mind versus body thinking. According to a World Health Organization, there are 800,000 suicides globally each year, and the rate of suicide is increasing. Now, are those people trying to get rid of their minds or their bodies? Are they not happy with their brains or mind? Do they realize they're two different selves? And in an attempt to get rid of the fictional self, they kill real self. It's sad. Confusion of the levels of abstraction is not a joke. It's not a joke. In desperation to kill their abstract self, unfortunately, they end up killing their real bodies. I say, don't kill your body, kill your mind. Get it zeroized, get an upgrade as possible. Make a hole in your mind, not in your head. So far we've been focused on individual words. However, thinking and self-talk in particular require us to combine those words into sentences or connect words together. So, our minds do not just look like bags of words that's divided by a massive red line, but bag full of interrelated and interconnected abstractions, or like this actually. Yeah. Some abstractions are such that relate it or explain any other abstraction, like God. This is the abstraction of the highest level, and the higher the abstraction, the less is related to reality. Such abstractions paralyze your thinking. You're done. No need to think anymore. For example, God is explanation and reason for everything. That's it, no need to think. In order to keep things simple, we will unite all high levels abstractions into one, just for the simplicity. Otherwise as well you can just get lost into them. Now, when we connect words from different levels, which we do when talk both to others and to ourselves, we are confusing levels of abstractions. Plain language is impossible without confusing them. And this, at first glance, childish visualization is of very high importance. And if understood, your thinking will never be the same. Visualization would help to understand and clearly identify this distinction and confusion between levels of abstractions. Abstraction of the higher level are possible, of the first level, are possible and easy to visualize, as these are words for real things in the physical world. However, higher level abstractions are impossible to visualize without deviation from reality. These are words for nothing, just words. There are two main confusions. First, high level abstraction confused with the abstractions of the first level, confused and merged. Second type of confusion is when high level abstraction put on the same line or sort of interconnected together. Regular speech implies just that. Now, how do we fix this mess? We've got to stop confusing levels of abstractions. Well, that's the catch. No confusion, no thinking as you know it. End of self-talk. Just like when we were taught this. And this is fantastic, isn't it? That's exactly what we want. This is what I want. This is how you clear your mind from verbal crap. I would give a lot to free my own mind from verbal crap. I wish I'd never learned words in the first place, but it's easier said than done. Considering that it's impossible to define abstractions of the high level. Alternatively speaking, these words have no meaning or words for nothing in the real world. Therefore, it seems organic to replace them with zeros. Now, as we mentioned before, for the purpose of basic communication, abstractions of the higher level play an important role, as they are only ones that could be understood by others. However, for the purpose of thinking, operation with the abstractions of the first level are deficient and ineffective or simply useless. Therefore, we assign value 0 to them as well. I cannot find better way of explaining this but to use statement of Alfred Korzybski's: whatever one might say is, it is not. Literally. If you think about this, it's a big statement. Whatever you think it is not. In other words, step by step, we came to conclusion that the value of the knowledge and thinking that based on self-talk is 0, nil. And this is the be brave part. Most likely a self-corrective mind of yours refuses to take this in. Your mind tells you, it can't be true, there's no way, that all I know is abstraction, empty sets, words for nothing, zeros. There's almost 8 billion people on the planet. How many of them have real knowledge about outside world and close to reality thinking? I've got to tell you, it's a privilege of very few. Okay, so let's focus on the bright side of the fence. We dive deep into our minds on the sub-word level, where we find zeros. But isn't 0 or nil or nothingness is an abstraction as well, not to confuse with symbolic logic. We're talking about 0 as if nothingness. And look, finally we stripped our mind of words. Amazing. I'm fascinated by it. It's very important for us to look good. We put lots of efforts into our bodies, but how about our minds? In my view, we have ugly verbal minds. We often see those before and after examples of people losing weight. How about before and after people have lost their mind? I love it. Interestingly, that mind stripped of words looks like artificial neural network. No wonder AI outperforms us on so many levels. It's much faster. In other words, on the fundamental level, our mind have very similar architecture to the AI. Think about that. We have left with the most important part. What do you see on this visual representation of the speechless mind? Science, clarity, silence, inner peace. Isn't it what you've been looking for? This marvelous mind. Moreover, we're left with the bunch of arrows that used to connect verbal fictions. They represent such words as and, or, if not, as well as very interesting word is and questions what, how, when. Now, is this how the logic behind our thinking looks? Logical connective, logical operators, the core of our minds, the algorithm of our thinking, which we'll discuss in the next lecture, as well as numbers and mathematical thinking. This is interesting. Also now, when you know there are levels of abstractions, bear in mind that levels of abstractions are abstract things as well. And remember, emptiness gives you room to move forward. Bye for now. It was a pleasure to share with you my thoughts, and have a good day, enjoy your life and think less. Cut it off, especially with self-talk. Take care.